Thank you for listening to SPN, the Savage Podcasting Network.
You're listening to The Stephen Savage Show on the Savage Podcasting Network. And now here's your host, film and television director, Stephen Savage.
Thank you, Andrea. How you doing, everybody? Savage here with you for yet another episode of The Stephen Savage Show, the official podcast of the Idywllwild International Festival of Cinema, coming to you as usual from Cranium Wheel Studios at Chateau Esteban in the beautiful alpine village of Idywllwild, California, just 2 hours east of Los Angeles, but a world away at nearly 6,000 feet, high atop Mount San Jacinto and overlooking the great Coachella Valley. And just a reminder, look out for some very exciting guests coming up in the next few weeks, including a return to the podcast of my friend, Oscar and Golden Globe-nominated actress Ann Archer, and one of the stars of the new ABC series Alaska Daily, in which she stars with Hilary Swank, also well known, of course, as the voice of Disney's Pocahontas. My friend, also an Emmy and Golden Globe-nominated actress, Miss Irene Bedard. Sorry if that sounded like a bit of a mouthful, but Irene will actually be in the studio very soon. I'm looking forward to that. But for today's show, I'm bringing you part 4 of my interview series with the Idywllwild International Festival of Cinema's 2023 Spotlight Directors. And also as an added treat, I have the head of the IIFC Volunteers, Ms. Julie Roy, who will be speaking about the festival and her involvement, which started back in 2020 when she was sort of thrust into the position due to some unpleasant circumstances, which she promptly stepped around and turned the whole thing into a very positive and now ongoing attachment to the festival. And we're all the better for it. And the filmmakers themselves that you'll be hearing today include MC Young, Jason Honeycutt, and Colin Francis Costello. And they'll be speaking about their films, American Prerequisite, Batman Immortal, and Storage, respectively. So here we go with the IIFC Spotlight Director Series Volume 4 on The Stephen Savage Show. I'm having such a great time interviewing some of our IIFC 2023 Spotlight Directors for the podcast and getting to dive into the stories surrounding the great films that we'll be screening at Idywllwild this year. And my next guest is no exception to that enthusiasm that I have. He's brought to us an amazing featurette called American Prerequisite, and we're so grateful to have the film as a part of our schedule for 2023. So here is the writer and director of American Prerequisite, Mr. MC Young. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you so much for having me, Stephen. It's an honor.
Where are you calling in from tonight?
I am in LA.
Ah, okay.
So not too far.
Some reason I had this feeling that are you a New Orleans native or what's that?
Yeah, I do have a little bit of an accent. I lost most of it now, but yeah, I am from New Orleans, pretty much raised there, and then I came out here for school.
That's awesome, man. I love New Orleans. I think it's a great place. But yeah, filmmakers always end up gravitating to Los Angeles for some reason. And then we all move, then once we establish ourselves, we move right back to where we're from. It's just kind of what we do. I'd like to start off the way I have been with all of my Spotlight filmmaker interviews this year by allowing you to give my listeners a little background on your journey through the world of indie filmmaking. So if you don't mind, enlighten us regarding your dive through this rabbit hole business that we're in. Just give us a little background on yourself.
Yeah, sure. So let me see. I have to say, I'm not gonna lie. I probably took a very, very, very side approach into the industry. Mm-hmm. But I think somebody once said, in Hollywood, there's really no front door, just a million back doors. So I guess It's probably one of the many back doors. I started out as a musician. I came out here to study classical piano. I went to Colburn. This was before it was a conservatory.
Right.
And then I think that's right shortly after they moved downtown to right across the street from the Disney Hall. But there at one point I really wanted to just be the next Stravinsky or just the next run-of-the-mill classical musician. And it was kind of a weird thing. I think at that time, everybody has that little search for the meaning of life. For some reason I was searching for the meaning of art, I guess. While I was in college, I was always asking my professors, who is the next Mozart and who is the next Stravinsky, who's the modern day composer. And it was, usually the answer was, the next Mozart or the modern day Mozart is really, the Beatles or Michael Jackson.
Right.
Music is kind of taking a different turn. And, during that time, it was, we were kind of like, just as I was going through, I started taking a lot of composition classes just for fun. And, ironically, I almost had enough classes to become a double major or minor or something.
Right.
I took counterpoint and everything. And somebody referred me to scoring a film. And it was just weird. It was, and so I said, sure, I'll take it, because I was like, oh, they got this guy, Mike, he can write anything. You just, give him a piano, buy him a beer or two, and, he'll write you anything. And so it was kind of like one of
cheap.
I was cheap back then, man. I'd get a Jack Burger and,
yeah.
You'll get a good composition.
Right.
Nowadays, you gotta get me something at, a baguette or something, a little bit pricier sandwich, but it's joking. Yeah. But it's I ran into it, and I met a really cool director, and in fact I'll mention his name is Justin Bull. He came out of AFI, and I had the pleasure of scoring his film, his short. And I just remember looking at the process of everything. It was just, I just was like, wow, this is really cool, And at that time, it was, it wasn't like, like a big light bulb that came to me and said, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. But, at the same time, it was kind of like it really caught my eye. And so I started trying to do more projects. And then, finally I started, talking to friends, oh man, if I was the writer, I would change this part and, I would do this. And, finally somebody just said, hey, well, either write it yourself or shut up. And, yeah. And, I guess that's how it always happens. We get into things as, critics and, if I would do it like this. And, it was very, very organic. And so, at that time, I kind of really thought about it. I also, I was kind of establishing myself as a musician, so I wasn't really something that I would say to everybody. And so I just kind of quietly, read some books, on how to write. And I read the book "Save the Cat," or what was that? Popular screenwriting.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I can't remember the title of it.
Yeah, but and as I was reading some of these books on how they break down scripts, I was like, wow, that's kind of similar to composition. You have your dissonances and you have your consonances.
Right.
And there's a lot of structure. And then I started thinking about script writing. The one thing about film is it runs in real time. It's the same way as music. So beats, timing is just as essential as the substance. And I'm sure every director will know that, if the joke or if the line hits flat, the whole scene kind of loses its oomph.
Right.
And these are kind of little things. And, as I was just kind of thinking about that, it was like just really weird. At that point, a light bulb did hit me. And I was like, if you had to think about it, technology is always dictated, our art is always dictated by technology. Mm-hmm. If you had to really think about what is the big thing, it would probably be film, because only in film can you really take music, picture and a story, and a great composition. You can write a piece about the dream of love, the best drum by Liszt, but you won't see it, And it's the same thing. You can write a great novel, but you won't see or hear. But only in film you can really combine all three. And so it was kind of like at that point I said, wow, this is really the one medium where you can really bear almost every part of your soul if you have the skill. Now, albeit, I think every little aspect, the music, the writing, the directing is a lifetime endeavor. Mm-hmm. And that's why I love the quote, art is a room without a ceiling. There's no masters, we're only students. But
yeah, that's a great quote. I read that on your Film Freeway bio.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Yeah, it's really good.
I got it off of a fortune cookie, but I really liked it.
It is funny though, people who come from, like you and I both come from a musical background, getting into, but we find that film, whereas music is fulfilling in many ways, film is not only the most collaborative art there is, but it's also the most all-encompassing. It's a person who's got a lot of artistic sort of jets in their toolbox can utilize everything to make movies, because it is so, not just visual, but there is so much to it. And as a concert, a classical trained musician like you, it's got to be bringing your sort of thought and vision into a film is going to, of course, be a little bit different than other filmmakers who don't have that background. I don't know why. I just think it's true. That's so.
No, it's a really good point. I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's all right. Go ahead.
No, it's there was this interview with Bill. Quentin Tarantino, and he was talking about how he had this whole scene and he just envisioned the music,
right,
to the scene. And I think even Spike Lee had once mentioned before that sometimes you have to have a song in your head, and it was like kind of refreshing, because sometimes all I do is have a song in my head on
right,
scene.
But they're your songs, whereas like Tarantino and Scorsese, they bring great soundtracks, and they hear a song and they visualize the scene with that song, that soundtrack song. But you're bringing a lot of self-composed music to your films as well, which is really that's a whole new ball game, I think, anyway.
Well, no, and thanks. I do appreciate that, but just for the record, it was classical, so anything pop, it's I definitely I know my limits. I know my limits, and so I stay in my lane. I try to stay in my lane on that.
Yeah. Let's get into your film, American Prerequisite. How did that project find its way, speaking of inside your head, from an idea in your head to where it is now, to be screening at Idywllwild 2023?
Well, there's somebody I knew very personally. I don't want to get into too many details, mm-hmm. but they grew up, they live in the South, and it's a little bit different out there. Mm. And, they spent a good little bit of time being incarcerated, and what's really crappy is they got arrested for marijuana, and they got a life sentence out of it, and it was because of the Obama administration that actually made it illegal to give life sentences to nonviolent criminals, that it actually got overturned. But when you grow up in the South, now people here in LA would laugh. You couldn't even. They would think you're lying, but when you grow up in certain towns, rural towns, you have people who've gone to jail for over 40 years for just a little bit of heroin or a little bit of something, and it's really tragic. But in hindsight, when he was getting out, I was kind of thinking about what his life is going to be like, and when you really think about what American Prerequisite is it discusses recidivism, but more importantly, it tries to question the idea or notion of anything is possible if you try. Mm-hmm. I mean, and I'm sure we've all heard it in some shape or form. Whether you've been to church or you've seen it in films. It's anybody who grew up here in America. We've been somewhat indoctrinated with that idea of that redemption is attainable if you try. Mm-hmm. But for somebody who's incarcerated, it's anytime they ever go back to prison, it's always the answer is, they didn't try hard enough, or they didn't stick with it, or they started hanging with the wrong crowd. But it's not always like that. I mean, like, have you ever heard of Dave's Killer Bread by any chance?
No, I haven't.
If you ever, there's this bread called Dave's Killer Bread.
Okay.
Great bread. And I'm not a big fan of multigrain, but he does make some good bread. I got to give it to you. It's a dude with a guitar and a ponytail. And if you read the package, he talks about his life story. He made some bad decisions. He got incarcerated, got into some bad things, but paid his debt, developed a passion for making bread. And then now he makes bread, sells it to supermarkets, and hires, incarcerated people to try to give people a second chance. Mm-hmm. And, something like that, it's a beautiful story. You read it on a bread package, and you're like, wow, that's really cool. But, what the sad thing is it's only cool because it almost never, ever happens. And so, for a story like American Prerequisite, we always use the word, he didn't try hard enough. I wanted to create a story that, what happens to a guy that really tries, that doesn't have, the perfect storm of Dave's bread, that, doesn't have that meet the right person at the right time, just your run-away guy. And, someone who's learned all the multiple trades that he could, works multiple jobs, applies himself to everything, does everything that's needed to be a role model citizen. What happens to a guy like that, where here even a bad tweet can ruin your whole career.
Right.
And so, it's in the story, we try to follow this journey and his struggles, but not just, the problems and the struggles of finding gainful employment, but it's also the struggles and the difficulties that any parent would have to face in a situation like his when you're just trying to find gainful work, because at the end of the day, whether you're incarcerated or not, or if you're a good person or a bad person or an a-hole or a saint, you got bills and, you got to pay. You have duties. You can't just buy your kid diapers 10 years later and say, sorry, times were a little tough back then.
Right.
Here you go.
Yeah.
And so these are kind of the dilemmas that arise in everyday folks. And so, when you have a guy like Marcus, the character of American Prerequisite, it's not just being reacclimated, it's taking care of the immediate situations at hand. And so, one of the big questions that I try to ask and hope that I can, accomplish that is that should we lead by example or should we lead by providing? And it's kind of, when you're poor, it's unfortunate. It's a little bit of both. You just don't have enough resources. So there's more grays than anything. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure almost every parent, whether it has to have had to have dealt with that in, some shape or form. It's like, that movie, The Wrestler.
Right. Yeah.
Like you got Marissa Tomei, the fun stripper at night, but by day, she's a straight up responsible mother. Mm-hmm. She knows she's dealing with dirtbags who just hit on her, but she doesn't care. She knows it makes good money. She has a kid. She's saving up for a condo in a good neighborhood so her kid can just go to a school district, good school district.
It boils down to that. It's that simple sometimes. For most people, it's just things come down to a very simple equation. So where's the film been seen so far? Is this a premiere at Idywllwild, or has it screened around?
No, this is a premiere.
That's
here
what I thought. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I really appreciate when people bring their films to us first. It just means a lot to me. I know it's kind of crazy, but it just means a lot to me when a film like American Prerequisite actually comes to Idywllwild first, because it just gives us a place of people bring their films to us when they're just, I don't want to say testing the waters, but it really is kind of taking, when you let your child out into the world, you want to be sure they're in a cool environment, and that's how I look at Idywllwild. What's your screening schedule? What days and times are you slotted?
So we're slotted for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Mm-hmm. And so, we're excited about the fact that we have 3 showings, and hopefully when we go out there, it'll be snowing because, don't really get a chance to see much snow in Louisiana. Don't get too much in LA.
Thank God it won't be snowing, but it's going to be sunny, but there's going to be lots of snow because we were hit pretty hard with this last storm. So you're going to see a lot of snow-peaked mountains and yeah, there'll be snow everywhere, but the weather's going to be really nice. So, but I'd say make sure you bring warm clothes because it will be a little nippy. So anyway, I thanks again for coming on the podcast, MC. I'm really excited myself that you've brought American Prerequisite to Idywllwild for your first screening. It really means a lot, and so when you're at the festival, I want you to make sure that you get me, just introduce yourself and let me know that you're there, because I'd love to talk with you some more about the film and about filmmaking in general. But I think your approach to storytelling is pretty intriguing, and I'd like to know more.
Well, thank you, Stephen. And I have to say it really is an honor to be part of your festival. And there's a reason why they call it one of the greatest indie film festivals.
Yeah, we're pretty proud. We're pretty proud of it. It was, at first it seemed weird when the Hollywood Reporter called us the greatest little film festival on earth, but now we've kind of embraced it because I know what they mean. So anyway, we will see you at the festival. I'm looking forward to it. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. MC Young. Thank you, MC.
Thank you, Stephen.
All right, so I have somebody very special on the line now, special to the film festival, of course, and special to me. And originally she was going to be an in-studio guest, but I'm having to have her call in today because my driveway has still got 4 feet of snow, and I didn't want her to have to jump into that. So anyway, this lady is the head of our volunteers for the Idywllwild International Festival of Cinema, and I'm always so happy when she comes to work at the festival because I know it's going to be a good time. And she's very organized, and her background, which she'll be talking about in basic corporate volunteers, things like that. She has an extensive background. So please welcome, calling in from only a couple of miles from the studio, but Ms. Julie Roy. Julie, how are you?
Oh, I'm great. And when you say a couple of miles, we have to put in perspective that's miles of snow berms, at this time. So yes, it's very nice that we could do this. Mm-hmm. Even though we aren't in person. The second best thing is doing an audio like this.
Yeah, so, I want people to understand that we're talking about the snow because this is the biggest snow dump we've had in decades. But right now, Idywllwild and for the whole week of the festival is going to be sunny with warm conditions, and the roads are absolutely clear. They've plowed everything, so it's total asphalt. So don't when we talk about the snow, don't act like it's a major deal because the majority of this storm is way behind us. And anyway, so.
Stephen, I just looked ahead at the forecast. 2 weeks of sunshine.
I know, so that's great.
It is blessing the festival. It is going to be so great.
Yeah, and it looks like Idywllwild in this, when it's under snow and the sun comes up, it looks like a picture postcard. So we're in for a good time.
We are definitely in for a good time, and it's going to be temperate weather, cool at night, but really nice during the day. And that, makes a lot of difference, I think, to people's expectations, also our volunteers. Yeah. Although I chose volunteers this year that I have worked with before. Mm-hmm. So I know their reliability, I know their enthusiasm, and I know that they want to be ambassadors for Idywllwild. Right. And that's the main thing I want your viewers to hear, is that, these were not people that just put a name in and, through social media. No, these were personally handpicked by me, and I'm just thrilled that they want to serve in this capacity.
I know we had our first our first volunteers meeting the other night, which I was able to come to and get to meet everybody. And yeah, we've got some really solid people. So the filmmakers are going to be made welcome by some great local Idywllwild residents who are very passionate about the festival.
Yeah, some of them, it's going to be their first time, but you can see their enthusiasm rise as they were hearing more and more from those that have volunteered in the past. And they're all excited about doing the Q&A. This is something that they're looking forward to, meeting the filmmakers a little more up close and personal. And I think that always has made for a good experience, both volunteers and filmmakers.
Yeah, it's really good for filmmakers when they are getting ready to get up and do their Q&A, when there's somebody who knows what they're doing, who's conducting that Q&A, and it's just really great. Julie, how many years? What was your first year at the Idywllwild?
My first year at the festival was 2019. And then we had the infamous 2020 that, as we kept hearing about this coronavirus that was shutting things down, we didn't want to take it seriously until we heard Disneyland was shut down. And then that's when we had to go into overdrive in terms of creativity for serving the filmmakers and still having a good award ceremony. So that's when I really
we squeezed it in. We squeezed it in. We squeezed that year in just barely. Yeah.
Oh gosh, didn't we though?
Yeah.
But I loved it. I have a passion for film, and again, like I said, I love to just be an ambassador for our town and to find other people that have that same passion.
What is your background, Julia? I know a little bit about it, but if you could tell the listeners exactly when did you get started, and how did that lead you to what you're doing at Idywllwild?
Well, I guess I could say my biggest putting my feet in the fire was in 1998, and this is going to start showing my age a little bit. But anyway, Super Bowl 32 came to San Diego, and I was the manager of training team at San Diego Gas and Electric. And we just put out the word, hey, would anybody like to volunteer? And when I had over 200 people want to volunteer to work that week that Super Bowl was going to be in town, I immediately sort of formed 10 teams. So I had 10 captains, if you will, working for me, and we helped the Super Bowl as a team of 200 volunteers. And there were some other corporations that also pulled together some people, but we were the largest. And that afforded me so much up close and personal with that kind of an organization where you have to think on your feet. And I kept telling everybody, when something would not quite go the way it was supposed to go, or somebody didn't show up, my mantra and my attitude was, well, we'll find a way.
Right.
And so it was really thrilling, and the people I worked with were a joy, and the ones that didn't quite fit in, they sort of self-selected themselves out. So I just had a fabulous team, a fabulous experience. And then in my professional life, after I left San Diego, I started raising alpacas in 2004.
Oh, wow.
And yes, I loved it, and I sort of took some of my training and development and volunteering skills into that industry. And from 2004 to 2017, I was very actively raising these beautiful alpacas, and for 3 years I was the event manager for an alpaca show where I had 80 volunteers I needed to work with, and we had 300 alpacas, and they came from all over California and Arizona and Nevada, and even down from Oregon and Washington. So I also learned to think on my feet, and I had to work with the judges and vendors and 100 participating farms, and many of the things that I think helped build my character in stepping up in front of an event like this. So the film festival is really just something I'm enjoying doing in my retirement, because we retired in 2017 and moved to Idywllwild full time. Right now, I'm also the president for the second year of the Idywllwild Garden Club, which I really enjoy doing. It's kind of like another one of my passions is making sure that I understand mountain gardening, and so I'm leading a wonderful membership of about 120 members, and we're doing lots of beautification around Idywllwild and lots of good education. And so I sort of have a passion, in that gardening space, but also in the arts space. And I'm a volunteer over at the Idywllwild Arts Academy. I'm on the board of directors of the Associates of Idywllwild Arts, and I am an advisor for a group of students who have signed up for a class called Art in Society. And I organize field work for them. So they come from their campus by vans into the town of Idywllwild. And for an hour each Friday, I have 2 different classes that are doing community work in town. And they're getting a sense of being citizen artists. And they come from all disciplines. They're also all ages of high school, because the Arts Academy is a boarding high school. And so I've gotten to know a lot of those students and their goals and dreams. Some are filmmakers, and they share what their projects they're working on.
Right.
So yeah, I hope you hear the passion in my voice, because it's just something I love. And that was my volunteering group experience. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty vast. The group that, first of all, a lot of people don't know that in Idywllwild we have a very famous arts academy, high school academy for performing arts and arts in general. And Julie plays a big part in that. And how many students are out there?
Well, there's about 280 full-time students, and they're international, so they're coming from all over, and there are some that are from the California region or other parts of our country, but most of them are international, and some of them it's the first time they've been away from home.
Right.
So we do our best to make them feel warm and comfortable in terms of what Idywllwild can offer. And the interest that they have. I mean, some of them are going to come to the festival, I understand, and see one of the films. And I know you're going to be a guest speaker at the class, the Art and Society class.
That's Wednesday.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's Wednesday. Right. Yeah.
Okay. Wednesday the 8th. We've got that lined up for you. And I think I can also say that not only do I have a passion for assisting like the youth, those that are in the high school age group, but when I was right out of high school, I got involved with a weekly television show, and we're talking in the 70s now. But and I was known as the Plant Lady in San Diego, where I ran, kind of produced my own live show for a year. And then after that, I was part of PM Magazine, where we did taped shows. And I was on every Friday night giving plant care tips for 2 years. So
that's great.
I kind of got bit by the bug, back then, that I loved being in the work of the filmmakers. So, yeah.
Well, you've landed yourself in the perfect position now. So.
It seems like it. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it so much.
So, ladies and gentlemen, when you come to Idywllwild for the festival, one of the first friendly faces that you're going to see is Julie Roy, and she's pretty special to us, and we're so grateful to have her working at Idywllwild 2023 and beyond. So, Julie Roy, thank you so much for taking the time and coming on today.
Oh, you're so welcome, Stephen. And, we really think of the film festival as a privilege that you've chosen Idywllwild, that I know this is its 14th annual, and a lot of locals will buy local passes and participate in the films. And I know that when I first came in 2019, I met several filmmakers, and I stayed in touch with them and followed their path. Yeah, and when they were working on a second film, and we stayed in touch through social media, and then of course through the the pandemic, we kind of lost touch, but it is something that I know people, if it's their first time to Idywllwild, we hope that you see us as more than just a mini Sundance. I hope you see us as a town that'll embrace you and help you maybe start a new path for yourself, or continue on a journey, or meet some wonderful, incredible people. The volunteers want to be an ambassador, so let us know if you need a recommendation for something, because we're all prepared to do that. And we'll all have friendly faces. So Stephen, it's such a great honor to work with you, and Trinity, and your whole team.
I appreciate
it. It's my pleasure.
Appreciate you. And so I'll be seeing you pretty soon, within a day or so, because we're going to get started on Tuesday. So
we're gearing up for it.
Have a great rest of your weekend, and thank you so much again for all you do for the Idywllwild International Festival of Cinema. So everybody, Julie Roy, our head of volunteers. Thanks, Julie.
Thank you, Stephen.
All right, I have with me now an Idywllwild alumni filmmaker, meaning he's been a selected director to IIFC before this year, and for 2023, he's brought us two projects, a music video that I won't even try to pronounce. I'll let him do that, and a very cool film entitled Batman Immortal, which I'm excited to talk about. So let me welcome to the podcast, Jason Honeycutt. Jason, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm excellent, except that I'm snowed in, but the festival week is going to be beautiful, lots of sunshine, and there will be snow on the mountains. But
it's always amazing.
Right now, I'm still dug in. You're calling in from LA, right?
Yeah, well, technically, I'm based in LA, but right now I'm on a ski trip out in Aspen. So
tough world, man. That's great.
I'm getting through it.
Calling in from Aspen, Jason Honeycutt. Before we get into Batman Immortal, let's talk about your music video, and please pronounce the title, and then tell us about how that project came about. I'm curious about it, and the fact that I saw that you had brought two projects to the festival, and one was this. I just said, I got to ask him about the music video first. So give us some background on that.
Yeah, the singer's name is Nathan. I'm always bad with his last name. Idywllwild, and he's from Hawaii. And his the video's called Aina Hanau, which is based on basically saying like his homeland. And basically I've been a fan of Nathan for over 20 years, I would say, and I've always listened to Hawaiian music. I have my wife's family's from Hawaii, and they've been there for like 160 years. So I've always listened to music, and so I just reached out to him. I'm like, "Is there any chance you'd ever want to do a video?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." And he checked out my stuff, and it was a good. I'm like, I didn't think he would, but I'm like, okay. So then I brought my camera on vacation and a drone, and shot all of the drone footage from the various islands, and then shot him for like a couple hours on this really amazing point where he grew up in Hawaii. He'd never been there. So I found it. Yeah. So we went to this great point, and then we shot it, and then now it's gonna be like exclusively on Hawaiian Airlines coming up here in
That's awesome.
A couple months. Yeah, it was really cool to kind of part with those guys too after the fact. So we just did it just for fun. It wasn't like for obviously like money or anything. It was just for fun, and then now people are kind of. It's going to be out there in a bit. So. Yeah,
that's amazing. I remember I did some commercials one time that ended up on Virgin Air, and I actually got on a flight and went, hey, that's
cool.
So it's very cool. It's
mine, look.
Yeah, it's kind of, I'm looking around like the girl I was with, and my girlfriend at the time, she looked around, she goes, nobody knows who you are, you idiot. I'm looking around like, hey, that's my work. Well, that's cool.
Okay,
so he's native Hawaiian, but he's never been to the location you took him to.
Yeah, never. And it's weird because, well, and the funny thing is I like that location because it's a cult classic film, North Shore, the 80s film, but there was a big scene in that movie. So I'm like, I always want to see it. Then I went there. I'm like, this is amazing. So then I'm like, hey, let's go shoot a whole video there. And he's like, I've never been there. I'm like, well, come on up. So,
well, at least you got him there. That's good. Yeah, the whole
oh
thing,
yeah,
the video looks beautiful. It looks great. So
oh, thank
good
you.
job on that. Right? So let's talk about Batman Immortal and give us the lowdown on how that project came about. I mean, it looks great, and it just there's something about it that's kind of gothy, creepy. You know,
Cool.
I like that sort of Batman. I'm not into the campy 60s Batman. I like the dark kind of thing. I've read a few comic books from, I guess, the 40s, and they're really dark. And,
oh yeah.
So to me, the dark Batman is the one I like. Are you the writer as well as the director on that?
Yeah, I did all of it, like kind of my typical one man crew kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, I'm a big comic nerd growing up, and my favorite artist is Jim Lee, like easily,
Right.
And I was just scrolling. It's funny, like this Hawaii thing. I just got through shooting Nathan's video, and I was just like, was in Hawaii just scrolling through like my phone, and I saw this viral video of this Batman cosplayer. I'm like, oh my god, this guy! And like he just walked through this casino dressed as Batman, and I'm like, this guy's awesome. Like,
That's great.
he looks like a Jim Lee. Yeah, like this guy, he looks like a Jim Lee drawing. I've never seen anything like it more than any actual film. So then I was like, I texted him like, hey, if no one's ever done a film, you need to do a short film of some kind.
Right.
He's like, hey, would you want to do one? I'm like, because everyone else keeps doing it and falling through, and I'm like, no, I'll do it. I'll absolutely. And then but then he said that the catch was, he was in the Anaheim area, and he's like, okay, but the thing is, I'm leaving like LA like in 3 days. I'm like, oh God. So I'm like, okay, let's just go shoot some Batman stuff, and then I want to write a story behind that. so I, rented the alley and all this other stuff, and then the funny thing was, I shot that sunset view of him walking out before they did the Pattinson movie.
Right.
I'm like, so now it's like I'm ripping them off.
Oh yeah, I thought it was an homage to that, but it's actually.
I'm like, well, no, I look like I'm a copycat, so
yeah,
I just waited too long.
Oh well.
And then and then we just shot it, and then I after the fact I'm like, okay, now let's write, like, what kind of story can we do? I'm like, we never hear from Alfred's perspective, like where where Bruce goes every night, and like what does he think about it? And he's getting a little older, and like he writes all his things down in a journal, like of how he feels, and then how Batman's he's more of a symbol, and he's enduring symbol. Then of course there's a little twist ending thing, which I think is pretty fun.
Right. It's awesome, man. But it does have it definitely has it's got the comic book thing, but it's almost like graphic novel-y looking. I just, when I looked at it, I just went, wow, it's a cool vibe. I didn't realize how quickly you'd made it, though. I thought you actually it looks like you spent a lot of time on it, but.
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah. I think like with him, I had to shoot him quickly, but then the other stuff, like I found a guy with a Batmobile and drove down to, so he stood in for him and drove the 89 Batmobile. Because I think the guy worked at Warner Brothers and had like the prints, so he made his own or something.
Right. Yeah.
So that's like, I'm like, I gotta have that in there. And then finding Joker was, that was amazing.
Yeah. I don't know. There's something about those characters. It's just, did you have any licensing problems? Or are you even worried about that?
No, that's the thing too. Cause, I had a friend who was working with DC and it was she gave me kind of the wink, like, okay, it'll be fine. Like, just go ahead and just make sure you don't take any money or don't make any money. Don't. Some people do these, fan films that have these like big Kickstarter things, like $200,000.
I know. It's like, how do you get away with that?
Yeah, like that. I'm like, I'm not doing any of that. I'm just gonna do this out of pocket for whatever. So
that's crazy. So this is the premiere of the film. Am I correct?
Yes, it should be.
Sweet.
Yep.
I like that. I like when you bring us premieres, Jason. It's great.
Oh, like
I don't mind being your guinea pig. The festival doesn't mind.
I love it.
That's
I was surprised. I'm like, I don't know if they're gonna want a fan film, but I'll try it. I mean,
I'm glad you did, because it's pretty cool, and I think the audience at Idywllwild's gonna love it. So you're obviously not looking for distribution. You're not shopping it around. That's funny. What's your screening schedule at Idywllwild for both the projects? What days and times are you appearing in?
I know. I forget what it is. I know it's like Thursday and Saturday. I'm not sure the Saturday slot, but I think it's like the 6 or so, like the later in the night.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be later on in Saturday night. I think that's when we're definitely gonna try to get some people out for. I'm going to try to get the guy who plays Bane up there. He might be coming. And
Sweet. Yeah.
So.
I'm premiering my band's new music video, not in competition, of course, but we did an animated music video. I'm working with a guy in Turkey, an amazing animator, and it's got
that's cool.
It also has this graphic novel kind of violent feel to it. But so I'm looking forward to that. But people will see.
Awesome.
They'll just look in the program and see Batman Immortal and also the music video. It's going to be fun it's going to be great to have you back at Idywllwild, Jason. I can't wait to see you.
I always love coming.
All right. Well, thanks for getting on the phone today. And
for sure.
And Jason's one of our Idywllwild 2023 Spotlight directors, and so look forward to seeing his work again at Idywllwild. So we look forward to seeing both your projects next week. So everyone, Mr. Jason Honeycutt, thanks for coming on, Jay.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Okay.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
I'm happy to welcome onto the podcast now another of our IIFC 2023 Spotlight filmmakers, the writer and director of a great featurette entitled Storage. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the writer and director of that film, Mr. Colin Francis Costello. Colin, welcome to the Stephen Savage Show.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad you're having me.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because I've done this in the past a little bit, but mostly my show is real like famous actors or directors or whatever. And for me, it's like I love to get on and just talk film with real passionate filmmakers, So it's
sure.
It's been fun for me. So, and I've been doing this thing with our Spotlight interviews that seems to be working well for my listeners, and that's giving them a chance to get a bit of background on the filmmakers. So if you don't mind, give us a bit of your life journey as a filmmaker maker leading up to Idywllwild 2023.
Oh wow, where do I start? I mean,
that's an easy one. That's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, my favorite film of 2022 was The Fabelmans, and that was because it actually brought tears to my eyes because I felt like there were scenes in there lifted from my childhood. I saw The Wizard of Oz when I was 5, and I fell in love with movies because I didn't just watch the movie. I was always wondering, like, how did they do it? Like,
right.
My friend and I would sit in a movie theater, and it was in the time where no one would kick you out after the movie was over. You
right.
just sit there and just watch it again.
Right. Yeah, that's great.
And I just fell in love with movies. It was my escape. I was biracial. I am biracial, and
I was going to say, did you change or what happened?
Yeah, exactly. But I was like, and so it was an odd childhood for me because I didn't have that many friends in school because I was kind of like the oddity because you had like the white kids, the 3 black kids, and me.
Right.
And so movies were kind of like my savior. Like I would come home from school and watch movies. I watch movies on Saturday afternoon, and my dad would take me to the movies. I'd go with my brother. So I was always living in the movies when I was growing up in Philly. But the attitude in Philly is, and I don't know if it's like that in a lot of other cities that aren't close to LA. When you say you want to make movies, especially after my parents had bought me a camera and everything, when you say you want to make movies as a career, they kind of just look at you and say, well, that's something that other people do. You have to get a real job. So
it's so foreign to people when you try to explain any arts.
It is. So I ended up in advertising, and still that when I said I was going to move to New York, like it was just a foreign entity to them that I was doing this thing. It's like commercials just show up on your TV. Nobody makes them or anything. They just appear. And and it was like the same thing with films. It's just, both of my parents were doctors, educators, and everything. And so it was very hard for them. They were to comprehend, like, you can make a living like this. They want you to go into business, even though I look back and it's just like, what is business?
Right.
It's just like this broad term. I'm going into business. So in advertising, I had a real 20-year sidebar in advertising, and I was able to make a really successful career out of it, and work with A-list directors like Spike Lee and Ridley Scott and Bay, and just see the inner workings. And even if we didn't get to work with them, I got to, talk to Tim Burton about a commercial, or Ben Stiller about directing a commercial I wrote. So it was always there, and I was always coming to LA on production. So it started to chip away at me, I guess. And at one point I just was like, I need to start writing again. And one of my good friends who's a director out here, Marcus Nispel, he said, you have to direct. You have to, write at the time. I didn't even know about directing. Really, I was just trying to be a writer. And then, you move out here and the business model changed. And I had a couple of shorts that, did well in 2012. And I had a feature that I wrote come out in 2013 called The Stream. And, the business model changed. All of a sudden, it's that medium budget movie does not really appear in theaters anymore.
Right.
It's all impulse,
right.
And, and that affects the film festival. So it was all a whole trickle down thing. And so I finally got tired of waiting for somebody to pick up a script. So I was just like, all right, well, I'll try my hand at directing. And did a short in 2017 called The After Party. And that was my first short I ever directed, film, anything. And then, it did well on the circuit. It was actually at Idywllwild. And then after that, did a web series, did another short, and I kept improving and kept studying the craft, because I believe you got to, look back and see what others did, so, you can form your own voice and everything. And then, finally Storage came along. I needed to do something with living through the pandemic and a divorce, and Storage seemed like it was the right time to make it.
Yeah, so you are the writer and director of that film, right?
I am.
Yeah, right. It's such a pretty movie too. Who was the DP?
His name is David Navarro.
Oh, yeah, it was a great job, and the collaboration. Yeah, I can always tell when there's a great collaboration between a director and a cinematographer. You can just tell right away, And
exactly.
And it looks like you guys had you definitely had a vision that you were able to translate into his mind as well, because the film has a purpose, and it just seems to your film Storage has a sense of itself, and a lot of times that seems funny to say, but a lot of times movies don't. You know what I mean? They just
No, we knew exactly what we were doing, because David and I are, to your point, are really good collaborators. And I would say it was my first foray this time around doing even a shooting board with David. We had gone kind of loosey-goosey with the web series that we did together. But, I was like, no, I want a consistent reveal, escalate. I want escalation and reveals. So, we designed the shots where you see the cheerleader and her head turns and everything. Things like that to just keep revealing and escalating it.
I was always so against storyboarding, and I would just rely heavily on my shot lists with my DP. And then I worked with a DP who finally said, just try it once. And man, I just couldn't. I can't imagine making a movie without doing at least a basic storyboard. It's just one of those things.
Yeah, and we were lucky enough to have 2 Arri minis. So I didn't want to waste, I wanted to make sure that we got these shots that, we were really, really trying to get.
Yeah. Was the look of the Arri, was that something that you purposefully, were the cameras available, or did you purposefully go and look for those cameras? Because I shot a film in 2014 on old 7Ds Canons.
Oh, wow.
Because I wanted it to have that Robert Altman look, and I was able to translate what we got in the lens into a cinema look program that I had, and it gave it that 70s look. So when
that's so cool.
Yeah, when I hear about people shooting on Red or Alexa, I just wonder, what was the process there? Why did you choose those cameras?
Well, David, we talked, because David and I, we've shot on Canon as well. and we talked about it, and I actually, because of the businesses that I'm in, having been in advertising, having, being the editor of Real 360 News, I was able to go to PRG, one of our advertisers, and they gave us 2 Arri Minis for the price of 1.
There you go. That's as good a reason as any.
With the lenses, and 2 complete packages with the lenses for 1. So you're talking a $6,000 price that's suddenly $3,000 for just the camera.
That's a score.
Yeah, we really scored. But what we did do was we did not want to do this in 4K. David didn't want to do it in 4K or 2K. It's not, because he is a student of like 60s and 70s movie making, and we wanted to go for that Saw feel, that handheld kind of thriller feel that you get a little bit in the 70s until the reveal and everything. And
that's why I brought that up, is because I noticed there was I don't want to say a drive-in movie vibe to the look, but there is. And it's, filmmakers like you and I just am drawn to that. I don't know what it is, but I think it's because of our early watching films, older films or whatever. We were just constantly eating up films, and what was on TV was usually older movies. So
that's true. And like one of my favorite directors growing up, like you always hear like when people say like Spielberg, whatever, one of my favorite directors growing up in the very beginning was John Frankenheimer.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And John Frankenheimer, and I actually have a collection of disaster movie posters in my office, and I have Black Sunday replaced like The Wizard of Oz for me when I finally saw it as a kid, and it just had this cinema verite look to it. It felt like you're there with them, and it felt immediate, and that's what we decided we wanted to go for. But we have an homage in there too to J.J. Abrams with Lost, a couple of our reveals and just things like that.
I like doing stuff like that. I've made a lot of Westerns, and I like doing that where I steal directly from Howard Hawks or John Ford. And I just do it for me, if nothing else.
Yeah. Well, no, it was just like I said to David, there's 2 shots I just want. I want that eye opening up, because that's Jack from Lost. The very
right. So there's a technique I've never been able to accomplish. I wish I could, but one of the 70s things nobody's ever done since then. It's like in Patton, it's like in the Missouri Breaks, where they sort of rack focus and then zoom in on. You'd never try that today, but I love it. I've just never.
No, that's a fantastic shot.
That's right.
And I just felt like, let's see what we can do. And then David is such an amazing collaborator. I asked, when we saw the location, we were like, I said, David, we got to get a shot through those pipes. We just have to. And it's just like, I don't know. But then next thing I know, he's like working with his team, and they're rigging a camera through the pipe. I'm like, God bless you, because I'm just like, I needed that texture. I needed that shot.
It's funny when you're working with the right cinematographer. It's happened to me a lot where I'll bring up something that I'd really like to try, and at first they almost seem like they're balking or they're hesitant about the shot. Yeah. And then the next thing you know, they're working on it. And you go, whoa.
And David was like, they were rigging this whole thing. It was just like camera rigged and hanging, and then next to the lights, and I'm like, oh my God!
Yeah, that's great when that happens. Hey, what was the casting process for you on this one? That's a great cast, by the way.
Thank you. I mean, we went through Actors Access. We were raising the money on Seed and Spark. We were crowdfunding, and I believe that I was just advising someone the other day. You have to. If you're trying to raise money for a movie, it's not good enough to just say you're making a movie or anything. You have to let people know that you're serious about this. So I believe in like assembling the core players and casting it, you know? And so they can see this is who the cast is. This is what they're going to do, you know?
I've I just think it's obvious that the cast that you've put together was well thought out. So I was wondering, was the process a lot of taped auditions, or did you have people come in, or which was tough during the COVID?
It was still during. It was like May of 2021.
Right.
So we're still in COVID. We still have all of that going on. So yeah, it was just a lot of taped auditions. And then I did, when we had like our final 2 for each role, I met like with them in person.
Right. Yeah.
To see who I vibed with. What can we do? Because and I'm sure you've gone through this too. I want like a good set. I want people to feel like they're respected and that we're together. We're like a family for 4 days making something.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to accomplish because sometimes it'll even be actors who are hesitant to, really form that camaraderie before you start shooting. But when you can accomplish it, it really makes a difference.
It does. And I made sure that, we had rehearsal. We had we were able to, they were able to get like a chemistry and a vibe. And there's that same scene where Kate, who plays Kelly the cheerleader, is dragging Rachel to handcuff her. Kate's so cute. It was like her first film. She had been making a bunch of TikToks, and this was like her first actual film. And she was from Wisconsin. She had just moved here, so she's so nice.
Yeah, she hasn't been jaded. She hasn't been jaded yet.
Yeah, she kept apologizing to Laura, and I'm like, okay, Kate, because the scene just wasn't going right because she was being super gentle with her, and I was just all right, Kate, you're from Wisconsin. I need to see some cheese making cow arm. And she did it, and it was just like, it was the last take, and she slammed Laura into that wall. And we were all just like, oh. She's like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, that was the shot.
Yeah, that's great. What's your screening schedule at Idywllwild? Do you know right offhand what days and times you're slotted?
It is Thursday the 9th from 6 to 8, and then Friday the 10th from 2 to 4, and Saturday the 11th from 2 to 4.
Fantastic. So everybody listening that's going to be at the festival, go see Storage, man. I'm not trying to do commercials here, but I'm very excited about this year's lineup. So I'm trying to get people to really get excited about some of the great films we have. So
yeah, well, I can't wait to get up there and see them. I was reading online some of the synopses and looking at the trailers, and they look really. I can't wait to meet the other filmmakers.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun camaraderie this year. Well,
I think so.
Again, thanks for coming on the podcast, Colin. We're stoked to be screening Storage next week at Idywllwild.
I am stoked to be screening Storage with you.
There you go. Colin Francis Costello, everyone. Thanks, Colin.
Bye now.
And there you have it, the fourth and final part of the IIFC Spotlight Directors Series and for 2023. And that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Stephen Savage Show. I want to thank everyone for spreading the word about the show, which has been vital to increasing our listenership on a daily basis on every platform. And we at this Savage Podcasting Network truly appreciate you. So thank you for listening in, and we will see you next time.